Sometimes it takes a while. Hello, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Hidden Truths channel. And how's everybody doing this Sunday evening? Hope you're doing well. Well, on tonight's live stream, we're going to discuss the Constitution in our cities. And they're both on fire. And we're going to talk about the connection between the two and why it's happening. Should be an interesting live stream. Might go a little long, not sure, but I'm sure I'll get lots of comments about it and stuff that'll keep it interesting. Can't wait. But first, we'll wait for some people to show up. So we'll discuss little stuff. By the way, welcome to the biggest little channel out there, like I like to call this channel. And I get good analytics, and but I'm still tiny, so you don't get the commercials. But anyway, I hope everybody had a good Sunday. You know, we got to take this time we got now, where if you live in an area that isn't burning down, and start taking time to enjoy things, because things could get a little tough. I know today I was out making videos with my dogs and stuff, out in the pastures, out in the wide open and stuff. I had a good time, relaxed. You know, sometimes you got to sit there and take some time off and remember why you work all the time. But yeah, the dogs and I had a really good time. And I got some good videos that I made shorts of that I put on my channel. Anyway, you know, they got themselves a rabbit again like normal. Digging away they were. I tell you what, my dogs live a carefree, born free life, and they enjoy every minute of it. You know, I like taking them out there, and they behave so well. You know, most dogs, you can't sit there unless they grow up like this, out in the middle of nowhere without no leash or collar, and just let them go, and they're fine. But they don't, you know, they like their wide open spaces. Good luck out there. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's great here. You know, the one thing about here is we don't have to deal with the stuff that's going on out in these bigger cities. And it's crazy. But I guess we should probably get into the subject. I'm sure some people will show up. I usually like to see the head count start going up, and here it goes. So let's start talking about the subject. First, welcome to the biggest little channel out there on social media. I appreciate everybody being here, and let's have a discussion about the Constitution in our cities, both on fire, and what's the connection. Anyway, for one reason we're having these city fires, obviously, is because the Constitution hasn't been enforced. Okay, but the people that are doing the damage to the Constitution are loving that our cities are burning to the ground. I mean, they're loving all this violence and hate and discontent. You know, but let's start with the Constitution. I have the same numerical value. But, you know, our founding fathers gave us this Constitution. They had just been through a war with a tyrannical government that was, you know, just not being nice to them and making their lives miserable and taking, you know, trying to take their dignity and their wealth. And these people weren't, and the proud people of America weren't going for it no more. And through all that experience, you remember, this is firsthand experience with these people. And this is why a lot of people don't understand the Constitution no more, because we don't have any firsthand experience like the framers of the Constitution had, why they made it the way they did. But they realized they needed to limit government. The government should only be in charge of a few things. And the border is one of them. Our money supply is one of them. Okay? To ensure that we can pursue our happiness is one of them. But anyway, through the years, you know, we got to hear even from Supreme Court justices that the Constitution is outdated. Okay, but if we don't follow the law of the land, and we don't follow the laws at the legislative body, that at the federal government level, that the laws with immigration and the border and stuff that are supposed to keep the border safe, and they don't do nothing for it. I mean, if they don't enforce those laws, the Constitution can't stand. I mean, the Constitution handcuffed the government, told it what it needed to do, and maintained peace and order through a lot of years, and gave people freedoms. I mean, this country became such a great country. So we made so many technologically advances for the world. I mean, where would the world be right now if the United States wouldn't have been the way it was, where you could start out in a log cabin and become president? Or you could become this poor kid that went to school but had a brain that couldn't be stopped and just made wonderful achievements for mankind and stuff, because they were allowed to do what they want. The opportunities was only limited to what their ambition was. You could do anything you wanted in this country. If you wanted to be a lawyer 150 years ago, you didn't have to go to college to do it. You studied law books. People used to read books. They used to be intelligent. You didn't have to go to school for everything. Just like years ago, you didn't have to go to school to be a truck driver, and now you got to go to school to be that even. They go have schools to teach people how to drive tractors and stuff. It's crazy. But the Constitution they gave us was to make sure we can pursue our happiness without having to worry about external fears. Okay, there's a reason we have a border. There's a reason it needs to be secured. And it's not so we can just let illegals in here and give them money as they go, not vet them. I mean, our government isn't even obeying the law, and then Trump wants to enforce the law, and he's getting stopped at every. How can a politician who helps make the laws, takes the oath to the Constitution and stuff, can be flat out for lawbreakers that, they don't want the law enforced because they don't think it affects them? But I tell you what, this is why we have the stuff we do in California, because nobody's been required to, they think it's a free-for-all. These people feel entitled to destroy anything they want because they feel they've been microaggressioned. I still don't understand what microaggression means. Does it mean that somebody upsets you? Oh, we got Google in here. This is why I realized that my live stream isn't going crazy tonight. We have Google in here. So if you write stuff down, they're the ones deleting messages. So you got to watch what you say. Anyway, but this is why we have our cities burning, because the Constitution isn't enforced. Just imagine if we would have enforced immigration laws, we wouldn't even be having these protests. I love how they call them protests. The riots. We wouldn't be having these riots no more. So instead of the Rodney King or the George Floyd riots that was caused by cops, right? And everybody say, well, that's justified. We could tear our city apart because the cops were mean and nasty to somebody. But this is created by the government because it didn't do its job. But nobody's going to hold Biden or Merrick Garland or none of them people responsible for this. Like say, if we would enforce the laws of the Constitution, we wouldn't have illegals in this country. We'd have Americans working. The non-citizens wouldn't be burning the cities down right now like they are. I can't imagine what it's like to live in that. I live in such a, people, not sheltered area, obviously, but an area away from all the hustle and bustle and craziness of the world. Anyway, and I don't understand how the citizens don't band together and say, we've had it with this shit. Okay? And then these Democrats, I heard all the Democratic governors got together and signed a statement saying how Trump's abusing his power by calling in the National Guard. Really? They're called in to protect federal property. Okay, so he's just protecting U.S. federal government property. But Waco, Texas, with the Branch Davidians, that wasn't abusing their power, right? When they did it for the children and all the children died, that wasn't an abuse of power, was it? Or when they shot Leroy Finnegan down in the snow with protests out there in Idaho. Okay? Just because some people didn't want to put up with the government taking over the land no more. I can't remember the name of the people about that was involved. But I remember Leroy Finnegan and seeing the video and getting shot down in the snow. That wasn't an abuse of power. Anyway, but this is what happens, when people are allowed to be lawless, they become lawless. And these are the people, right, that say the right is violent. And they say, well, Biden never called off the National Guard. He never had to. Okay? We had January 6th, supposedly, the big right-wing extremist craziness, right? Before Biden got to office. And then we all just sat there and took our punishment for 4 years while the Democrats were in office, and we didn't sit there and burn cities down or nothing like that. Even when, after Afghanistan, which nobody got charged for. Did we burn the cities down? Demand that answers be given? People be held accountable? Well, they were breaking the Constitution left and right and, get threatened with nuclear weapons and Hellfire missiles and F-15s, and we take to the streets and burn the cities down? No, we just went to work every day and dealt with it during the pandemic when our rights were being infringed upon. Did we go and burn the cities down? And we're talking our constitutional rights. These are people that are making stuff up in their head that doesn't apply to them at all. This is craziness we live in today's world. But yeah, the Constitution's on fire by the politicians, which is causing the streets to be on fire, which the politicians are just loving. I mean, do you see how good they've been at dividing us? Well, they're just sitting there in their ivory towers watching everybody act like the Hatfields and McCoys. Anyway, this country ain't going to take much more of this. See, eventually the patriots are going to get pissed off, and then that'll be what's going to end it. When the patriots and the vets have finally had enough, and the citizens start banding together, because when everybody realizes that we're all in the same boat, especially if you're in the city, tell me, if you own a business in LA right now, what's the difference if you're Democrat or Republican? Is it going to stop one from getting looted over the other one? The other business being destroyed and the other business owner being put out of business? Is that going to stop you? Stop them? No, see, we're all in the same boat. We're all having to suffer under these people. God. And then they all go, send the National Guard in. Yeah, to guard government facilities. I don't know. Maybe Trump feels he needs to after, congressmen are trying to rough up people at a deportation center, Maybe he has a reason. It means people are lunatics. Anyway, you living in a big city? Better have a bug out plan. In case all of a sudden they come marching down your street. That's right. America first. America first. Because we're Americans. Why is that a bad thing? I never understood why standing up for your country is a bad thing. And wanting the best for your country, what you mean you want the best for your countrymen, why that's a bad thing. And the Democrats will come out and flat out say in the open how they're trying to destroy Trump's presidency and just make the country as hard as possible to live in the next 4 years. So you're basically telling your neighbor, hey, because I'm pissed off, you got to suffer. Crazy world. Crazy world. And they're destroying their cities and they call us the violent ones. I would love to see a protest of thousands of armed Second Amendment people, hundreds of thousands. I like to see 2 million man march of armed patriots in D.C. Boy, that sent a message to the government, wouldn't it? When you send a protest there, an armed protest that's bigger than all our militaries put together. And the ones doing it would be all vets. That'd send a message to them real quick. Maybe that'd be a nice message we could send our government to show them how ready we are to defend our Constitution and our rights, that they would finally bend. I don't remember what king was handed the Magna Carta on the end of a sword. I can't remember what king was handed it to it. But he understood then, okay, I'm allowed to be in charge, but guess what? The people can take me out anytime they want. Our government needs to fear us again. They need to realize that, their job is to serve us. And the best way to serve us is to make sure that the Constitution is enforced for all people. We become a land of laws again, where everybody's equal. Equal under the law. And if you're an illegal alien in this country, where you have no right to be here, you have no rights. You have the right to get your ass back home. And if you can't do it on your own, we'll sit there and help you out a little bit. Okay, we can do it the easy way or the hard way. Just like the laws are enforced on us average tax-paying Americans. We can't get away with breaking any laws. Like I say, we can't even go around not wearing a seatbelt, driving around with your headlight out, or a flasher light out, anything. Anything for them to pull you over. But I guess they do it to cars that, oh, you no speak English, no driver's license, no, not American? Good, you keep going. I'll go harass that other American. Because they don't follow the Constitution either anymore. We have illegal aliens in this country that have more rights and we have rights in this country. We don't have privileges. Well, I guess we have the privilege to drive, so we do have some privileges. But privileges are granted to us, given to us by government that can be taken away at any time. Rights are granted to us by God, which the government is supposed to ensure that our God-given rights are protected. Okay? But, now the government, you need a permit to go in business. So I guess being in business is a privilege because you have to have government paperwork that goes with it. Anyway, it's crazy time. Well, I tell you what, my live stream ain't very, very big tonight. Google was in here, so Done chased everybody away. Not going to get thousands of viewers like I have been. So, but that's the whole connection behind it. If one's on fire and attacked, which will be the Constitution, the rest of us are going to be under attack. Okay? And these people are running wild and crazy. You know, a normal American who goes to work, a tax-paying American, isn't going to act like that. For number one, after working all day, he's tired. And then on the weekends, he's got a ton of stuff he's got to get done. You know, he's got a honey-do list or whatever. You know, that's one thing about men when they get older. Their toys get different, but they enjoy getting their hands dirty just the same, okay? I got a yard to work on, okay? We don't have time to sit there and burn down the city. But they need to take time to get their city back together. I mean, we can't be allowing this as Americans. We can't, you know, if anything, if you don't want to take on the mobs, circle Gavin Newsom's house. Circle the mayor of the city's house. Okay, so they can see your anger. Since you got to see the other people's anger, let them see your anger. You know, these politicians need to be taught a lesson too. But anyway, you know, now it's New York, I heard. It's going to just spread. Every day this week, it's going to be one or two new cities. This is going to be their new thing they're going to write about this summer. Well, we need to stop the deportations, get rid of INS. Okay. How about we get rid of the Health and Human Services Department? How about we get rid of social services and welfare and stuff? Okay, I do believe that the INS should go too, because you know what? The INS ain't doing a good job. Let the local authorities handle illegals, and then they can give them to government officials after they arrest them, and then the government officials can transport them to the border and say, get the hell out of here, don't come back. Okay? But it's handled locally, because the government, you know, all the INS agents trying to sit there and cover the whole United States, especially you got millions of illegals here, it ain't going to work. They need to give some authority to the local law enforcement agencies to take care of some of this problem. Instead of them having to call INS when INS won't even show up, yes, that's still happening. They can actually, you know, transport them themselves and somehow charge the government for the funds. Deputize everybody in the able body in the county to get rid of the illegals, whatever it takes. The thing is, when we start doing it, we start enforcing the laws on these illegals, and they really see, oh, they're kicking us out, they'll leave on their own. When they know the cops are going to show up at their door, they'll leave on their own. And then, like I say, we take away their jobs that they get, start punishing these employers that hire them, they'll never come up here. If there's no greenbacks to be made up here, they're not going to come up here. If they got to worry about running out and hiding, can't get a job, don't get no more welfare, they ain't going to come up here. And if they do, they're just going to keep passing through until they get to Canada. All right? You know, they're a good socialist country. They're all about feelings. At least the most populated areas, kind of like this country, right? The most populated areas, the smallest area percentage in this country are all bleeding hearts. Okay? But eventually it's going to affect it. You know, these people don't care. They want to take over our country. And if you're a rich American, poor American, white American, black American, Mexican American, they don't care. And you want to show them all this compassion. Right now, we got people that don't belong in our country burning our cities down. Okay, and people get together on January 6th and have a protest, get attacked by the cops, have instigators in the crowd, get escorted through the Capitol, and they spend 2 years in solitary confinement on trespassing charges after a whole summer of the other ones is burning cities down. Where's the justice in that? Anyway, you know, the thing is, and they did have to call out the National Guard during Biden. Yep. Because like I say, we all went to work, took our punishment for 4 years, realized that we had to endure for the long haul. Nobody took a shot at Biden. Okay? Nobody sat there and tried to assassinate nobody. Except, you know, the FBI under Biden, the FBI and the ATF showing up at 6 o'clock in the morning with no knock raids, shooting down civilians. That happened. You know, it's amazing. All these type of civilian shootings, like the Ruby Ridge and David Koresh and the Branch Davidians and, you know, the other ones we had, Lavoy Finnegan, all happened under Democratic presidents. I do believe Barack Obama assassinated an American citizen overseas that had joined a terrorist group too without giving him due process. I do remember that too. Yeah. I mean, I'm supposed to worry about Russia or Iran or China? It's not them that I'm afraid that's going to show up at my door and shoot me down. Distract you from the real enemy. The real enemy is our police state we live in. And running out of beer, and I'm supposed to be worried about China. Yeah. You know, the thing is, if China decides to take over Taiwan, there's nothing we can do about it. Our politicians know that. Anybody who's been in the military knows that there's nothing we can do about it. Okay? They make it sound, you know, this is one thing about American propaganda, okay? It builds our military up into something it's not. And it's going to pay the price one day, okay? A Custer battle type price, I don't know. But they're going to pay the price one day. And there's nothing we can do to stop China. All right? So, I mean, we must just forget that. And that's why China and Taiwan, I believe, is moving building factories in the U.S. because they know that China is eventually going to be in charge of their factories and they can have them no more. I mean, the second China starts to stuff, those big CEOs of those chip manufacturing companies are going to be out of there. All the important people are going to be out of there. You know, any type of asset that can't be nailed down is going to be out of there. So, but, you know, I'm not worried about China. Unless, if we get stupid with them, just remember they can bomb us too. And their Navy's bigger than ours. So that means we can have a lot of ships off the West Coast one day. One thing about China and Russia that does bother me, not like North Korea, but is they can really mess us up if they want. That's another thing the average American don't realize. You know, Russia's dealing with getting his ass bombed in his country every day. His citizens are getting killed. Apartment complexes, they don't care. They're just hitting everything, indiscriminate bombing. And us Americans say, well, he needs to calm down. How would he, if we were dealing with the blows in our country that Ukraine was dealing with, you know, let's say the Mexican cartels all of a sudden got so advanced that they're sending drones in like the Houthis in Yemen. where they were starting to do the same thing to us. Would we allow it? The first American that was killed by a drone, we would be going in and carpet bombing the cartels in Mexico. Don't tell me we would. But we're just telling Russia, suck up this punishment. I know we're helping Zelensky with intelligence and giving him the equipment and everything he needs, but don't worry. And we're not going to stop. But you gotta refrain from acting. What kind of world do we live in? Where we think our enemies aren't allowed to defend themselves. You know, Russia could end this war in Ukraine in just a couple seconds. A couple strategically placed hypersonic, low-yield nuclear-tipped missiles. That war is over. There may be a lot of, you know, craziness at first, but Europe ain't gonna do nothing. Okay? You know, I guess maybe the best thing that could happen to Europe is anyway, they're getting overran anyway. They're not gonna do nothing. The United States ain't gonna do nothing because the American people wouldn't be behind it. The American people would finally say, thank God, I don't have to work today to supply Ukraine with money. Anyway, but since we don't live by the Constitution and the logic of the founding fathers, like no foreign entanglements, not going into debt, you know, but through history, you know, the history books have changed so much. I mean, I don't know what they're teaching in history and in government and civics anymore, but when you got people coming out of school that think that non-residents of the United States have constitutional rights, they're just confused about a lot of things. Okay, but everything that made this country great, starting with the people that went to war, made it through the war and founded the government we have. Okay, they gave us a great country. And what kind of country are we giving our children and our grandchildren and the generations that haven't been born yet? I like the immigrants that come in the legal way. Yeah. That's the way it's supposed to be. Like you say, if we enforce the law of the Constitution, in agriculture, these people that come over from other countries, they got to go through the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Homeland Security, and have an FBI background check. And then they have to have a medical insurance policy that covers them while they're here. They got to pay all that up front before they're allowed to come here. And then we're allowing, now, the border is supposedly closed. I don't think so. Maybe, anyway. I know illegals aren't getting picked up like I want them to be picked up. Like I said, I wish he would just deputize all able Americans to clean up their neighborhoods. I mean, we got non-American citizens destroying our cities, destroying American businesses. And I'm sure they're assaulting American citizens. Just because an American citizen who lives in America and is residing in America has a different view of somebody here who's illegally and feels he's entitled to destroy whatever he wants. Crazy world we live in. I can't even imagine where you feel your logic, your sense of logic is where you feel that's right. You go into somebody's home and tear it completely apart, take it over, steal everything out of the house, and feel you did nothing wrong? You know, the American dream was created by immigrants that wanted to be Americans and Americans, not by illegal aliens that were milking the system, taking cookies out of the cookie jar and then smashing the shit out of it. I mean, they're coming up here, so, you know, the whitey who they hate the worst, you know, us, you know, gullible, stupid people that go to work every day and pay our taxes so they can sit there and take advantage of it. How many videos have you seen of that? Mocking us because we sit there and go to work every day and how we're fools. You know, if we all got on the system like they want us to, who would be the one putting money into the system? Who would be the one adding cookies to the cookie jar if everybody's taking from it? See, they don't think, not practical thinkers. So if we just get rid of government handouts once and for all, we won't have such issues. See, we get rid of government handouts, you know, the founding fathers, the welfare clause in the Constitution did not mean the welfare system. Okay. The welfare clause went what's in the best interests of the people. But they turned it into a health and human disaster. Remember, Johnson, war on poverty? That was 60 years ago. Anybody want to know what our longest fighting war has been? What's cost us the most money? The war on poverty. It'll never be won. All I know is people are getting poorer and it's harder and harder all the time. My kids nowadays make more money than their mom and I did raising them, and they struggle harder than we do. Okay. Anyway, it's crazy time. You know, if you live in the big city, like I say, be prepared to get out of Dodge if you have to. Either that or band together, be prepared to protect your neighborhood. That would even be a better thing. Stand and fight instead of run. Show these people that they aren't going to have their way. Because eventually the fight's coming. See, this is what I tell people all the time. They're at war. Okay? They already know they're at war. We don't yet. They're acting like it. We're not. Eventually, we are going to get woke up and realize we are at war. You know, I just can't believe how far we've fallen as a country. What we let our politicians get away with. What we let mentally deranged and ill people in this country get away with because we don't want to look bad. You know, if you don't correct somebody, you're hurting them. I'm not saying you need to walk around correcting everybody you see if they do something you disagree with. But if you see an egregious behavior issue, saying something to them with the truth is not a bad thing. But see, you're not allowed to sit there and tell somebody, a guy who thinks he's a woman, that, you know, you might have a screw loose upstairs. You're supposed to tolerate and accept it. You know, the Constitution is not about tolerance. The Constitution is black and white. It's written in an easy language for us all to understand, especially the government. You don't have to go through 12 years of school to be a lawyer to understand how the Constitution's written. Because all that obviously does is confuse you to the point where you don't even know what shall not be infringed means anymore. Oh, that means more regulations? Oh, yeah, that's what that means. Bad is good? Oh, okay. I understand. Right is wrong, or wrong is right. So sick of living in the Twilight Zone. So tired of it. And then, you know, you sit there and try to make sense of this world. You know, you're a rational person. And you're looking at these riots and or their protests, as they want to call them. And you're trying to understand, as a rational thinking human being who controls his emotions, to wonder what it would take for you to get to that point where you would start tearing your city apart. as a normal American, whether you're conservative or liberal, sitting at home watching this right now or watching your favorite show on TV or whatever, what would it take you, somebody who doesn't want to interfere in somebody's life, what would it take you to get out and start doing what these people are doing? Because these people, it hasn't taken much. We just want to enforce the law. And these people are losing their minds. Okay? And then the thing is, they don't understand is the people that voted for Trump, they demand that he cleans up this country and gets rid of the illegals. Okay? And we're in the majority. Okay? Okay? So they're not going to get their way. And it doesn't matter. The law needs to be enforced. If the president doesn't do what the Constitution orders him what to do, he's dereliction of duty. That's what you can be impeached for, not doing your job. Not for doing your job. That'll be the next thing they'll try to impeach him because he's abusing his power. But you're not saying he doesn't have the power. You know, but these Democrats, I'm so tired of this insane thinking. Putting the American citizen last all the time. We're always in the back of the bus. You know, it's the back of the bus, the back of the bus. Well, where is the average taxpayer, American citizen now? In the back of the bus. Having to stick 30% of his wages for the day as you walk in the door of the bus to make sure you paid your way. While the other people in the bus, in the front of the bus, they get to take money out of that box as they leave. And they did nothing all day. This is the world we live in. So, you know, it's crazy time. When Donald Trump lies to you, do you realize it? Which politician doesn't lie? Did you believe everything Joe Biden had to say? You know, that's the one thing I like the left and the right do it. If you're not with them, obviously you support the other guy. No. When we have George Washington come back, but to me, Trump was the better evil out of the other thing that was running. You know, Miss Cackles. But I don't understand out of as big as the parties are, that's all we got to choose from? I don't understand it. Out of millions of people, that's the best we got to choose from? You explain that to me. There's no young blood out there that can inspire the youth. You know, maybe they need a little inspiring. Some young person that made it through hard work and stuff. It could be an example. You know, hey, you work hard, this is where you can go. Instead of somebody, hey, you sit on your butt, the government's got you covered. Oh, we got a disease going around. We're going to send out checks to everybody so you don't have to go to work and you have child care. This ain't the country I grew up in. That is for sure. But, you know, we stand up, we'll take it back. Anyway, I sure do appreciate the people that have been here. YouTube clamped down on my live streams. Anyway, I knew they eventually would. They don't like too much growth. See, the thing is, when the truth comes out, that hampers their goal too. That's the thing I don't understand about these social media platforms that promote this stuff, because eventually they're going to be firebombing your businesses. Okay? Eventually you're not going to be able to back them enough, and they're going to have a problem with you. So you invite your own terrorists in that's going to terrorize you. You know, America has been so successful because we've accepted American values. hard work, honesty, integrity. Okay? We obeyed the laws. We were good to our neighbors. You know, ambition. The ambition it took to get in a covered wagon in St. Louis and go all the way to California or Oregon. That was crazy. You know, America has some very unique history that no other countries had. But anyway, and that I can get into why you got a third world country and you got a first world country. Because third world country, the mentality's different. I mean, it's just different. And this is why we have problems with some of the foreign workers in this country. Because they come here and they got a third world work ethic. Whereas in American, everything had to be perfect, okay? We didn't go for half-assed jobs or sloppy jobs or, you know, we were precise on everything. You know, and bosses were, you know, high-strung sometimes. But we took pride in our work. It wasn't just enough to get by. You know, American exceptionalism didn't come from being average or expecting just mediocre out of people. It came from expecting the best out of people. And like I say, it created a country where all you got is a bunch of people that want to come here and then destroy it. You know, would you rather come here as a law-abiding citizen? Come here the legal way? Coming to a country you know that's not going to allow illegal immigration and take away the life you're trying, take away the life that you're trying to create and to get away from the country that was miserable? I mean, they're just trying to bring this stuff up here. If your life was so miserable where you came from and you're trying to go to a white-dominated, white-cultured, white country, why would you insult the people that are there? Obviously, you look at the life they created and are envious of it. Is that a reason to hate us? You know, some people can live poor and be happy too. But, you know, they all look at the materialistic thing. Then you see these people come across the border. They say they're broke, right, and have nothing. And they're all wearing name brand clothes, thousands of dollars in jewelry between their ears and their wrists and their neck and stuff. And I'm supposed to listen to a hard luck story? If you couldn't afford to live in your country, all you had to do was sell your jewelry and you could have lived there for a couple of years. And they all got cell phones. And it's amazing. They walk from Central America all the way to Mexico in like a month in the same clothes they were wearing with no supplies, right? And it took the people 6 months to go from St. Louis to California in a covered wagon with supplies. I guess we won't ask questions there. That'll just be a hidden truth that never comes out. How did those people do it? They were the most efficient and resilient people I've ever seen. Oh, and then one thing about, I said something in my live stream last night about pallets of bricks showing up, and lo and behold, oh, they're not bricks. They're cinder blocks. I'm sorry. But pallets of cinder blocks. So this is all organized. These people want to bring down America. You know, the thing is, do you think America is going to be great anymore if you were able to bring it down and somehow able to defeat all us vets and patriots? What kind of country do you think you'd have left? You'd be king of a graveyard. Okay? The only reason this country still has money because Americans are still working. We shipped all our wealth overseas, all our wealth-making capability, All our factories are overseas, making other countries and citizens rich. Well, we sit there and consume the product that's built. And because we're the nation's money reserve, the world's money reserve, we can just print money like it's going out of style. Well, I tell you what, when they talk about pain, when the Americans talk about some of the pain they're feeling, it's going to get a lot worse. Okay? There's a lot of damage that's been done to this country. And it's going to take a lot of hard work and pain from everybody to fix it. Nobody's going to get off the hook for this one. Except, I guess, we need to hold the politicians accountable. $37+ trillion in debt and going higher every day. Did you let somebody come into your house and steal like that from you? Anyway, many issues we got to deal with. But I work to pay bills. Immigrants are welcome, but come the right way. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, the legal way. Like I say, we enforce the Constitution, make the government enforce the laws. Just enforce the laws. It's like we have to follow. I don't understand how the government gets away with this. But, we got families that because of this illegal immigration that have paid the ultimate price. Their children, they have lost loved ones because of all this crazy stuff. I mean, the more people it affects, the more control the government's going to lose. I'm not going to say the government, because the thing is, Trump needs to come down hard on this. This should be in the news every day. Okay, now that they're destroying our cities, instead of they're the victims and they have a right to do what they're doing, I'm so tired of that. How can you have the right to destroy something? Under what grounds do you have the right to act like an animal and destroy something that's not yours? Okay? And that's another thing. It's amazing. The American taxpayer always has to flip the bill for all the damage done by these people. Just like in Ukraine. Every single time Russia blows something up or destroys something, the U.S. has to flip the bill to repair it or replace it. They aren't sending their best. No. I mean, they're sending people the jobs I do. You can't even get these illegal immigrants to do anymore. That's why I have plenty of job security. But some jobs that I've done, I've had to compete with illegal immigrants, which really pissed me off, or these people that come over from other countries legally that work in the agriculture company business, and you get these politicians. Well, we need them here so they can pick our crops. No. If we're too lazy to do the work, what it takes to feed us, then we need to starve and understand why we need to do that work, and then we go back to doing the work. Making our lives easier isn't going to solve none of our problems. It isn't going to wake anybody up. It's just going to make life easier for more people and become lazier and more dependent on the system. And I mean, when a politician says that, they're flat out saying, we're allowing you in here because we're going to exploit you. We're going to pay you lower wages so we can treat you as slaves. But hey, we'll give you a cell phone and we'll kind of let you run the country like you want, and you're good to go. Oh boy. I mean, if I would have thought this 40 years ago, how this country was going to turn out, how crazy it was going to get. I mean, I thought we would have been in civil war by now, or we'd have been at somewhere where the patriots are trying to take our country back. But I guess, like I say, the other side's at war. And eventually they're going to do something to wake us up and say, oh, they're at war with us conservatives. Just like 9/11 had to happen for the average American to realize, oh, the terrorists are at war with us. Well, no shit. I knew that when I was in. But, like I say, these people are going to try to steamroll you. They don't care what your political affiliation is. They don't care what your color is. They don't care what your nationality is. If they see you as an American, you're the enemy. You're the spoiled little rotten American that's done nothing but make their life miserable their whole lives. Remember, all the problems that these people have in their country is because our country exists. Like I said, where would the world be right now if the United States wouldn't have existed? Where would all the innovations come from? Where would all the countries, the first war that was fought for men to be free, what would have caused other countries for the people to rise up to become free? The idea spread. People can be free. The great experiment. But the elites have figured this experiment's gone on long enough. So let's burn that Constitution. Let's burn that country down. And since we can't get the conservatives to arm up and finally take on the liberals, maybe we'll just sit there and have the illegals burn the country down. Remember, how many are here that they know about? About 20 million. So that means there are probably at least 40 million here. I mean, that's a lot of damage that can be done. States like Minnesota, that's full of them. When that place erupts, we'll see how Governor Walz likes it then. When he can't control the mob he brought into his state. I tell you what, there's a lot of Minnesotans that are extremely pissed off about all their neighborhoods being taken over. And I'm talking little towns like Walnut Grove, Minnesota. Okay, they're taking over everything. Redwood Falls, Minnesota, completely taken over, where the cops don't enforce the laws on them like they do the white people there, or like in Redwood, the Indians. But if you're an illegal, you get away with everything. I mean, it's sad to say when the Indians and the white boys are all on the same side because they're getting treated the same way. Anyway, this is the country we live in. I just wish we could reinstate the Constitution again. I wish government would realize how great that document is. But see, now everybody's so power hungry and just lusting over money. People hate the capitalist system. You know why the capitalist system isn't perfect? Because greed always comes in. And I had a comment on my one live stream about democracies, or maybe that was a back and forth on one of my shorts. Well, in a real democracy, it protects a minority. Yeah, but see, you're dealing with evil people that take over and take control of stuff. They're willing to give the worst to somebody as long as they can benefit from it. Okay? That's the thing. We got evil people in this world. And that's why there's no such thing as a perfect society. Because a perfect society would contain evil people, which would make it not perfect anymore. And it seems like it's always easier to jump on the bandwagon of evil people because it's the path of least resistance. It's the path you can be lazy and experience all powers of the flesh and just have a great old time. It can be a selfish world. Okay, me. That's the one thing about the Constitution. It protected the minority. It protected the individual, okay, from the rule of the majority. Even if we have majority rules in the vote, but the laws still have to follow the Constitution. That's why we have this, this Supreme Court thing with natural laws over constitutional, God's law. Oh, exactly. I always say I obey the 10 Commandments. I obey God's law. And the thing is, if you obey the 10 Commandments, you don't break any of the laws in the endless volumes of law books. 10 simple rules to follow. But our government, now they break plenty of the 10 Commandments. Like thou shalt not covet. What did Jesus think of the tax collector again? Oh yeah, the tax collector was right at the same level as the prostitute. But the thing is, he forgave them both, right? Are you a bottom? I don't understand what that means. Anyway, but, we need to bring our Constitution back. So I know our government has to follow the rules. So I know that I don't have to worry about some president getting overzealous with his authority and deciding to send the ATF or the FBI out of my house at 6 a.m. and decide that we're going to have a shootout because I said something that they disagree with or something that they find threatening. I want to live in a safe world. I want to live in a safe world where I know I ain't doing nothing wrong. I'm not harming anybody. And I don't want to deal with anybody trying to harm me. Whether it be somebody that works for the government, a government agency, somebody that's here illegally, or my neighbor that doesn't feel that he has to sit there and abide by the same laws I have to. I want to feel safe like I used to. You can't feel safe anywhere. And then they want to take away your Second Amendment, the right to defend yourself. I think everybody needs to carry. How many women would be getting raped out there if every rapist knew that, hey, she's packing a gun in her purse and she's going to blow my balls off? How many rapes are we going to have? How many home invasions are we going to have if the home invader knows that he's going to get his ass shot off the second he tries it? What are the biggest crime-ridden cities? The ones that have the biggest gun control. And you go out to areas where people believe in the Second Amendment and understand the purpose of a gun, that it's a tool, whether in ranching you use it to take out coyotes, predators, or whether you use it to defend your home against human predators, whatever. But some people just aren't going to be victims. Anyway, I say I appreciate everybody being here. If you want to support the channel, hit the like, hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button and the bell notification. I'd appreciate that. Help the channel grow. YouTube's kind of being tough on me tonight. Do you know a guy named Wilray Price Body? He's a California senator who introduced a bill for trans-affirmed surgery. This is mental illness. So instead of sending these people to get proper help, you're going to sit there and encourage their fantasy and their mental illness and take all their money and shorten their lifespan and just eventually make them miserable in the future. And this is another thing. In politics, our politics have dropped to the level now where we're talking about we got to make legislation concerning men wanting to be women and women wanting to be men. This is what we're spending time on legislation. I guess the founding fathers could have never came up with stuff like this, foresaw stuff like this, because, like I say, they would have thought this was mental illness unleashed. What it has been. I don't know why this shit's being encouraged. I don't know why. all the stuff we would have got punished for, if I would have went home and said, hey, Mom, I want to be a girl. I couldn't even imagine that. Not that I ever want to be, but, we were brought up. I'm sure we had people back then that were confused, but they knew they were wrong and they were confused. They knew they had something wrong with them. Not that you're right, everybody should sit there and want to be like you. You're a role model and you should have your way. We weren't allowed to act stupid when we were growing up. We got corrected. If you acted stupid in school that wasn't normal, you got teased by the other kids. So either you were corrected or you just kept it in the closet so nobody knew about it. But anyway, now we have legislation. We can't enforce immigration laws, but let's enforce transgender special rights, special privileges for special group laws. Anyway, but in California, I can see it happening. I will not go back to that state anymore. It's like going into another country. Everybody's got to stop to go into that country. Remember the old fruit fly thing? Yep, we need to sit there and inspect everything coming into the state because of the fruit fly. Boy, still got them set up. What fruit fly was 50 years ago. It's amazing. Government just won't give up some positions. Anyway. Crazy world. If you're in the big cities, brace yourself. These people found a reason why they can blow up and get nuts. And BLM and Antifa have sided and became allies with the illegal immigrants. Watch. The illegal immigrants have a lot more people in their group than BLM and Antifa together. So, things are going to get a little crazy. Trump smacks down right away, like you say, mass deportations. Enforce the law. That's what Americans want. There's lots of conservatives in these cities that want the cities cleaned up. Way more people than that are burning them down. So get in there and get the job done. Do it and move on. And, these sanctuary cities and all this stuff, these governors and mayors that are allowing this, okay, what federal law am I allowed to break? Can I declare my place a sanctuary farm site or a sanctuary ranch house where no laws in the government apply to me, but I can still take the electricity from it and the food from it and all the benefits from it, but I ain't got to follow any laws? Nothing but hate. That's right. Divide and conquer. They've divided us so much now that we have illegals burning down our cities. Illegals. These were George Floyd riots. You could say they were Americans doing it. Right? Anyway, eventually it's going to come and affect all of us. And I'm not afraid to stand up to these people. I know what country I live in, and I'm not afraid to express my American views. Truth, justice, and the American way. And that's just the way it is. Not social justice. Not, I'm going to tell somebody not the truth, but what they want to hear. And not, I need to do the Mexican way. No. Like, what's that? That Mexican holiday that these people get all bent on. They just had it. I can't remember of it. Where mega people aren't allowed to go to Mexican restaurants and all this. Cinco de Mayo. That's stupid stuff. Watching these videos of these people. No, you mega, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, the same thing they accuse us saying we do is what they do. Now, I wouldn't expect anybody, if I told them what to do, if I decide to go that route, that they have to. Everybody's got the freedom of choice. But these people that sit there and complain about what's happening to them is the same thing they do to other people. And they don't even realize it. Okay? If you want to have a margarita on Cinco de Mayo, you can. But these people blowing up are the same people that don't have a problem taking the day off on the 4th of July and celebrating the 4th of July or Memorial Day. Okay? Days that celebrate American heritage. You know, 4th of July, American celebration. No, we're not going to celebrate that. Oh, they'll celebrate that. Anyway, it's just another part of this world where people are losing their minds. Out of control, can't control their emotions. Like I say, what would it take you, like me, sitting in this chair talking to you? What's it going to take me to decide to get up out of this chair and start burning down my city and getting all crazy and hitting on cops and stuff? What? Because you know what? When I go out, I'm not going to be protesting. When I go out, it's going to be an armed military unit going to solve the problems of this country. What we need to do. You know, and if you got to call the military into a town, it's because the mayor and cops aren't doing their job. You know, and this is LA, you're spoiled rotten, feel you can do whatever you want to do. It's not like that city isn't known for riots. You know, how many times is the taxpayer going to have to rebuild that city? I mean, they just had the fires there. I guess they want to have a new fire this summer, huh? Yeah, it was just last year where they had the fires that burnt down a lot of LA. Now I guess they're just going to have the fires that the illegals set burning down LA. Maybe they just need to burn it down to the ground and just leave it there. Well, I'll sit there, use it as a museum to see what happens when people completely go crazy and lose their mind because they're not getting their spoilage anymore. Anyway, yeah, I guess my live stream isn't going to be as crazy tonight. I tell you what, you know, for a couple times there, I knew YouTube was going to clamp down eventually, but the algorithm, they let the channel loose and it got crazy. I enjoyed it. You know, growth of the channel. We need to get the truth out there. As Americans, we can't be listening to the spin that these people put on it. People can't be listening to it no more. Because if you're believing this stuff and it finally comes to your front door and you're not prepared and you're going to find out these people don't care about your feelings, it's going to be too late. And then where are you going to be? Wishing you had listened to somebody. Anyway, bad things are coming. We need to enforce our Constitution again. Patriots need to get together on the same page. And we really need to go into action. We can't deal with this no more. The average American is suffering. And that's not what America stands for. American citizens are not second-class citizens in their own country. It is not our responsibility to ensure a good life for everybody that's not living our lifestyle on the planet. That's not our responsibility. And we don't have to pay for that. And we don't have to pay for our so-called allies to have their war with their enemies. We don't have to pay for that. Anyway, we reinstate the Constitution, and they start following that. A lot of these countries' problems will go away. But the pain that it's going to take to get to that, because Americans haven't lived by the Constitution for so long, that's going to be a shock to their system. True freedom is great. But, you know, to make yourself independent and not dependent on the system, that's going to be hard for a lot of people to accept. Even though the jobs are out there, you know, they want to fill their card with that EBT card, not realizing how much better of a person they'll become. and understand our country more when they go out and start working. And they'll raise their self-esteem and just life will get better. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the live stream. That's all I got for this evening. Maybe tomorrow night will be a little better, but I enjoyed everybody being here. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock again, Mountain Time. And I don't know what the subject's going to be because I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So anyway, but like I say, if you live in any of these cities that are affected or soon to be affected by this mob mentality that's going to take over again, take care, okay? Protect yourself. Keep your family close and keep them informed. And, God watch over you all. Anyway, that's all I got this evening. This is Tom with the Hidden Truths Channel. I'm out.